Eddie, I was going to go to you first. You led the REVEL trial, and it led to an FDA approval for Ramucirumab in the second-line setting. Can you kind of walk us through that trial and tell us your thoughts on it?
Sure. Of course, there were many investigators throughout the world, and
I thought it was just you.
Yeah, 1,200 some patients. That would have kept me quite busy. And Maurice Perol in Lyon, France, was also very involved and presented the data at ASCO. So the study was a phase 3 study trying to demonstrate that docetaxel ramucirumab was a superior treatment option with a primary endpoint of overall survival as compared to docetaxel. And docetaxel really had been the mainstay of second-line therapy, at least in clinical trials, for well over a decade by that point. And this was based on a fairly unimpressive response rate and fairly poor, in fact, overall survival and progression-free survival. So it was sort of a standard of care that people, in many respects, weren't that thrilled with, but nothing had really beaten it for this non-EGFR, non-ALK gene-rearranged group, which is the great majority, of course, of what we see in non-small cell lung cancer. So patients were randomized to docetaxel with either ramucirumab or placebo. And again, this was a global study. Patients were allowed, if they had squamous histology as well, which, as was mentioned earlier, has been a contraindication to use of bevacizumab to date. And what the goal was, of course, was to evaluate overall survival. And what was shown was that there was, in fact, an improvement in overall survival. One question, in addition to whether it would improve survival, of course, is tolerability. The tolerability overall looked quite good. There was not evidence of some of the things that we were certainly worried about going into the study. So bevacizumab was not developed in squamous cell carcinoma because early on in clinical development there was some data regarding hemoptysis, which was in many cases fatal, that was associated with its use. This study did allow patients with squamous cell carcinoma, although excluded patients with particularly central tumors. Right. But we did not see a difference in terms of complications of pulmonary hemorrhage and hemoptysis between the two groups. And the results also looked quite similar by histology, both in squamous and non-squamous non-small cell lung cancer. There also is a recently published quality of life analysis showing that there really was not a decrement in quality of life with the addition of ramucirumab in addition. So I think those would be sort of the take-home points. The response rate was increased. The response rate actually was upwards of 20%.
Almost doubled.
Yeah.
Almost doubled. Yeah.
And it's interesting, going into the study, our assumptions about response rate and even progression-free survival were in many ways exceeded as part of the study. Now, it was exceeded actually in both arms, yeah. Both the placebo arm as well as the ramucirumab arm, but there were clear differences with improvement in response rate, progression-free survival, and overall survival in the ramucirumab arm.
So it was one of the few trials where you get the trifecta, right? You get OS, PFS, and overall response rate, and really no new safety signals with that drug. One of the